So how did those new immigrants impact city life? Well, we talked about ethnic neighborhoods already, and those ethnic neighborhoods tended to be poor neighborhoods. And in the poor areas of the city, there was a big issue with overcrowding. This is called a dumbbell tenement because it's shaped like a dumbbell. This air shaft here was supposed to allow tenements to be stacked closely together, packed closely together, and then air could still get into the inner parts of the tenement. However, it acted more like a chimney because, as you can see, the tenements were usually made cheaply out of the cheapest wood that they could find. People would throw garbage and trash into those air shafts, so they stank. They burned very quickly, again, because the air shaft acted like a chimney if a fire caught hold. So poor housing issues were constant. A lack of housing was constant. All those immigrants coming to the city, they needed somewhere to live. They wanted to live in the city. They didn't want to live here, but they tended to live in these areas. There's sanitation problems, bad water, bad food, difficulty getting food into the city, not enough transportation to get people around. Remember, they're still using horses, which also led to the poor sanitation problems. There's bad water, which leads to disease running rampant. Cholera was common. Crime, right? Those poor individuals would go into the slightly more affluent areas and steal from them, and then those people would do the same. There was fires constantly, big issues. This led to a new politics emerging. Those new immigrants needed somebody to help look out for them, and it had a profound impact on city politics. People voted for the people that had found them jobs, that helped to find them homes. So the immigrants, in return, gave their votes to the people that had helped them out. They tended to be neighborhood bosses, or what you might hear called ward bosses. An area is a ward. In gratitude for the help they received. And some historians and the progressives in general, we're going to talk about the progressives later, suggested that this was bribery, that these ward and neighborhood bosses were bribing immigrants for their vote. And that's just not true, because the politicians were just looking out for their constituency. One of the big problems is that the bosses did tend to be pretty corrupt. They used graft, which is theft. They skimmed off the top, right? They would charge $1 million for a building rather than the $800,000 that it would cost, and then they'd keep the rest. They'd use bribery when giving out city contracts. If somebody wanted to build a building, that builder would have to give an additional sum to the boss. So this, for example, is Boss Tweed. I want you to note that they draw him very portly here. The reason being, whenever you see a political cartoon, when you see somebody that's overweight, it doesn't mean they were overweight in real life, at least not to this extent. It means that they were greedy. However, we need to remember that the political machines did fill a niche. They were there to help the new immigrant groups, which was an issue that had become a fear of nativists, because they did have immigrants the nativists were afraid that the immigrants were becoming too politically powerful. Especially the white majority felt the need to limit immigration, and they tried to push through legislation to prevent immigrants from voting. So the same Jim Crow tactics used in the South were going to be used against immigrants in the North. This is a progressive movement. The progressives developed as a white middle class response to the problems of the urban environment and to political corruption. Partially this is based on social Darwinism to legitimize racism, and partially immigrants were seen as less capable of succeeding in society. The nativists believed that immigrants shouldn't come to the United States if they couldn't take care of themselves, and that they should not lean on political machines and ethnic neighborhoods to help them out. And one of the arguments they used was people like Andrew Carnegie, an immigrant from Scotland who had started with nothing, a rags to riches story, and made himself fabulously wealthy. This confirmed the nativist bias, and in addition, it allowed those old immigrants, those nativists, to forget about the help that they had received and to forget about how the government was helping them succeed through all of those things that we studied in 4.2 and 4.1.